Hello, Joel from Jones's Auto Club YouTube channel, and today I'm going to answer the most asked question I get these days, which is all about diesel conversions and what they cost. So here you go. You can see one of our more recent, more custom builds. This was a 97 K2500 Suburban that we went all out on. Custom bumpers, custom lift, custom interior, custom paint, LED light bars, all of the above. So anyway, we've got some videos that kind of outline the build details on this one, and so check those out if you get a chance. But that's not what we're going to be talking about today. Today we're going to be talking about kind of a more typical, less involved diesel conversion and what it costs to do that. So I'm a spreadsheet guy, so I produced a spreadsheet for you guys that is based off of actual numbers. Here it is. So I'm not like showing you any secrets. This is all readily available information, but it may enlighten you as to why it costs what it costs to do one of these. So anyway, this is a typical restoration that we do, typical conversion that we do. Cummins swap on a 96 K2500 Suburban. We have done lots of these in the independent front suspension trucks and Suburbans. And this one just so happens to be for a specific 96 Suburban that we do. A lot of you may have seen it. It's the blue one. We documented it very well on this one that we purchased. I don't divulge a lot of this information for customer vehicles. This is the one that I currently own. I'm building it. I'm going to be selling it. So if you're interested in purchasing it, let's get right down to the numbers, because that's all ultimately you guys want to know about. So we started with a 96 K2500 Suburban. I bought it on Craigslist with a blown up 6.5 liter. For $400. I also bought a donor vehicle, a 92 Dodge truck, two-wheel drive. I paid $2,400 for it. I recouped $300 for the transmission, $150 for the Dana 70 differential. I got $100 to scrap the body that was completely roached out, and I also sold the brake booster power steering assembly for $100. So the nice thing about spreadsheet is that you can keep track of your actual cost. So $1,750 right here is what I actually have invested in the Cummins 6-speed D12 valve. And you can see the math right up here. Purchase price and then the deductions. So if you already have a diesel and you already have a Suburban, then you can immediately right off the bat take those numbers out of your spreadsheet. Okay, so moving right along here, Cummins adapter plate. I really like running the 12 valve with the 4L80, so that's going to require an adapter plate. We sell them for $950. That's about $50 less than what you will find online at a lot of different websites. So anyway, $950. We also sell all of the bolts that you are required to have in order to bolt that up. Depending on your donor vehicle, you can kind of scavenge some of these bolts, but we sell bolt kits. They cost about $50. You're also going to need a starter. It's $165. Transmission controller. There's lots of options for the transmission controller. We like to use US Shift. Basically, I can sell you a transmission controller with a 4L80 wiring harness for $650. It's completely programmable. It does everything you need it to do. It works great. Now, moving right along, you're going to need to decide what you're going to do for an accessory bracket, and that's where these next costs come in. I like to use the Delco alternators. If you're going to go with the 8-groove pulley, then you're going to need to spend money on that. That costs $20. The actual Delco 22SI, if you buy it specifically for a diesel, then it's going to cost you about $100. But the nice thing about this is that it has a tack lead, so makes tack hook up a little bit easier. If you've got air conditioning on your vehicle, you're going to need air conditioning brackets. I prefer the straight water outlet. We manufacture those in all different sizes. We also manufacture alternator brace for use with the kind of mid-mount, high-mount air conditioning bracket setup. Cost 20 bucks. So we're just going to keep thumbing through these line items. Hopefully I'm not going too fast for most of you guys, but we'll kind of hit the high points here. Motor mounts, we manufacture the motor mounts. We sell those. They cost $250 with standard rubber isolators that use the Gen 1 Dodge isolators. They cost $250. Upper radiator hose, lower radiator hose, that's all kind of standard stuff that you can purchase locally from your local auto parts store. You're going to need to buy some air conditioning parts regardless. So I have $300 invested in those. Tachometer is kind of an issue as to how you pick up the tach signal and whether or not it's going to be compatible. An easy fix that I've found works really well is to use the Dakota Digital. That costs about 61 bucks. You can buy it anywhere. Oil filter and oil, $27. Now, if you take it to your Jiffy Lube, you're going to probably spend more than that, but that's what it cost me. Air filter, I like to use a big honkin' Wix filter. Costs about 40 bucks. It's open element. 4-inch intake, everything works great. Big rubber intake boot. Fuel filter. I hate the Dodge fuel filter that has the water sensor on the bottom, so I spec out a Wix filter without the sensor. You can purchase it locally. My cost $7.25. That's actually probably a little bit low. You'll pay a little retail above that. So here we are right here. Any diesel conversion you're going to want to do, this is a very, very common upgrade for all of the 12 valve conversions, and this one is actually really, this spreadsheet is really specific to the 12 valve. 24 valve, you run into this wiring issues. The common rail stuff, you run into even more wiring issues, and so we like to keep it simple and stick to the old school 12 valve, because in my opinion, they do everything you need them to do. So high RPM valve springs and the governor that allows you to spin more. If you're going to run an exhaust brake, you have to do this. It's just, yeah, you should just do this. It would be a shame to do a diesel conversion into one of these vehicles and not have it stop. So we always do some brakes. This is the rear brakes. We inspect the rear differential, make sure everything works good there. I added 150 bucks. Other comment on brakes, I'm going to skip down here to line item 31. Front brakes, again, the vehicle needs to stop as well as it goes. So we always try to install drilled and slotted rotors, heavy duty pads, all kinds of good stuff with that. We source them from my company, Rotor Depot. If you want some good quality drilled and slotted rotors, contact me directly, Rotor Depot. The website is a little quirky right now. We're working on it, and hopefully we'll have that resolved, but your rotors are going to cost you about 350 bucks. So anyway, back to the issues. A lot of the heater controls in those Suburbans and trucks, they require vacuum to operate, but with turbo diesel, you don't get vacuum. So we have a solution for that. It's not very expensive. It costs about $75, and then you need the pigtail for it as well for another $12. So moving right along there. Drivelines, this is one of the overlooked expenses. It can get pretty cost prohibitive to do that. You need to shorten and rebuild your front and rear driveline. Shorten the rear, extend the front. Sometimes because the Suburbans and those trucks have a reduced tube, it costs a little bit more. You have to start over and buy a new driveline for the front, and that can get to be fairly expensive. Batteries, that's kind of a no-brainer. You're going to want to have new batteries. We already talked about the brake rotors. Transfer case oil seal, that's simple. You just want to put new seals in it while you have it out. Inexpensive, it costs 15 bucks. Local part supplier. Transmission filter and oil, again, you'll probably spend a little bit more than that if you have to pay retail. My cost is about $28 for the 10 quarts of tranny fluid and the filter kit. On our example here, we had to replace the case. Maybe you saw that in one of our videos. We had a cracked case, and that cost us $700 for the new case and to take our internals, which all turned out to be awesome. and move them over to the new case. You're going to always run into battery cables, wiring connectors, things that you're going to have to buy. They're going to be sourced locally, not supplied by a vendor like myself. They'll cost you around 50 bucks. You're always going to run into, you need miscellaneous nuts and bolts to bolt accessory brackets on, cross members in, so on and so forth. I allocated another $50 for that. And now we're back down to our specific costs associated with the build. So our example here is our blue Suburban. We had to remove the fender flare, replace it, and then paint it. Luckily, I can do that in-house. It only cost me $175 for the custom match paint, as well as the used fender flare that we serviced and put back into. So anyway, detail products. This would be, I'm not going to sell a vehicle that doesn't appear really nice, that's got nice shiny paint for the most part. So we're going to have waxes, some buffing compounds, things like that. Our Suburban has a cracked windshield, so we have another $775 to have that replaced with a new one. And then upgrade these things, because most likely with your new diesel you're going to be wanting to tow, and nothing is better than the extendable towing mirrors. So I allocated $100 for those. Now onto the interior, and this is where some of the costs may vary depending on your application. We needed to replace our carpet because it had a bunch of latex paint spilled on it. I love Auto Custom Carpets. They sell a nice kit that has heavy mass backing, complete, $435 in my cost. And then to round out the interior, I always like to add in some gauges for the boost, tranny temp, and exhaust temperature. So those are the pod gauges. They cost about $400. It's expensive, but it's worth every penny because you can actually monitor what's going on. Because remember, you do this diesel conversion, you lose all of the onboard diagnostics. Your OBD2 port doesn't work anymore. So if you decide to do all this, that is just parts, all those costs, just parts, we come down. I had title fees, I had to pay sales tax on the $400, plus I had to transfer the title into my name for the Suburban. So parts that we have invested thus far, $9,486.82. Always factor in, for estimating purposes, 10% fudge factor. I have this listed right here as other 10%. So add in another grand, which comes to a grand total, no labor. We're talking just parts, the Suburban, the Dodge diesel, and for the most part, wholesale price on most of the parts listed to do what we need to do to get a functioning vehicle, $10,500. Now, you might want to just stop there if you're considering to do this your own. That's most likely what you're going to spend. Now, obviously there are exceptions to every rule, and there is somebody that has done it for a lot less than that, but typically that's what you're going to have to spend. Now, if we add in some labor charges to sublet or to have a shop like myself do it, we're going to start to add in some costs here. And here's where things kind of start to escalate pretty quickly. In order to remove your old engine and to swap in the diesel, you're going to spend approximately 80 hours to make it right. And that is not doing anything custom. So we're going to go ahead and add these line items in. So 80 hours times 75. We can get the formatting correct on that. You're going to have about $6 grand in labor just to swap in the engine. Now, if you're going to rebuild the Cummins itself, that takes about 20 hours. So we'll do 20 times 75. It's another 1,500 bucks to actually go through and rebuild and reseal. This is basically the same as resealing. So if you're going to put gaskets, you're going to put head studs, all that stuff. Now, interior, We are kind of going a little bit above and beyond on the interior just because ours was really gross. It had a lot of mold. The carpet needed to be replaced. All of the seats needed to be taken out. So we completely stripped the interior to sterilize it, make it 100%. And that took some time. It's approximately 20 hours. So if your vehicle needs that, then you can count on at least 2 to 3 days of messing around with that start to finish. And that's removing everything, cleaning it all up, and putting it back in. So we're going to put in 20 hours for that. And we are up to 20 grand. So at the end of the day, anybody that calls or emails, most of the time what I tell them is I tell them that a diesel conversion, if you bring me the vehicle, because let's be honest, I bought this vehicle for $400. So we're not dealing with a huge swing there if you bring me a vehicle or if I source a Suburban for you. You're going to be looking between $15,000 and $20,000. And that doesn't include all of the wonderful upgrades that we did on this vehicle. That doesn't include custom interior, custom leather interior, custom paint, custom bumpers, custom lighting, all of the, you've got, for example, this vehicle right here has $3,000 worth of wheels and tires. So you can see pretty quickly how the custom additions can add to this number pretty quickly.